Good evening, local time, good morning, good afternoon, good day, hi, wherever you're watching. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Steve and this is Christianity Out Loud. A big thank you for watching, wherever you're doing that, be it on YouTube, be it on Rumble, be it on Locals, be it on any of the other social media platforms or apps or whatever I should call them that I'm on. Thank you. Comment, interact, like, subscribe if you like what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do here. Bit of culture building, I guess you could say, which is a nice segue straight in today. Nice segue into what I would like to have a chat about tonight. That is the culture war in inverted commas, that the term's floated around for a little bit of time, but I think it warrants a little bit more investigation, or a little bit more exploration, shall we say, given some recent events with some companies who I am not real thrilled about the direction that they're going in, but up to them, I guess. So, culture war. What is a culture war? Or what is a war? Basically, one side, you think militarily, one side, one country, one group trying to overthrow another one, trying to impose rule, law, set of ethics and moral values, a moral framework, if you like, politically and ideologically onto the other group. So what would a culture war look like? Well, it would be a group of people trying to impose something upon another group of people, say an ideological, moral framework, for example. And you just have to look at some headlines, look at news. Okay, that's what I do here. I look at news and current events and then relate it back to Christianity, relate it back to a biblical worldview. Do I like it? Do I not? My biases are fairly clear, I would have thought, by the name of the channel. But other biases aren't quite so obvious. Well, they weren't anyway. What's being promoted, and what's being promoted particularly and most concerningly to me, as someone who is in education, someone who has children, what's being promoted to collectively our children. What's the truth? What is the truth? Hey, your truth, my truth, everybody else has their own truth. Men are women, women are men, and that's fine. Or so it would seem. There is no correct answer in mathematics, which works for me because I'm mathematically inept. But in my case, I just don't have the capacity to get to the right answer. There still is a right answer. And children, governments are removing parents from the crucial role that they play in raising children. And yes, okay, before we get too deep down this rabbit hole, I know that some children aren't raised in perfect homes. I get it. But in the majority of cases, if they're not raised by two parents in the home, they're raised by at least two parents if there's a separation or something. But parents are still actively involved in the development of their children. Should be, at least anyway, until the government comes along and basically removes the parent from the education system, or from education, involvement in education. So who is then parenting the child at school, if not for the school by virtue of the government? And if you don't think that could happen in Australia, just have a quick look down south, if you're in Queensland that is, or New South Wales. Have a look down south at the Victorian education system and what they are doing down there at the moment. Doesn't fill me with a great deal of confidence. Yeah, there's a great line in the film The Pirates of the Caribbean where I think it's Captain Barbossa, Johnny Depp's character. No, that's not Captain Barbossa, sorry, that's Captain Jack Sparrow. Barbossa was Geoffrey Rush. It was Barbossa, that's right. I've got my characters all mixed up. Geoffrey Rush's character. Anyway, Captain Barbossa says to the Commodore's daughter, spoiler alert, not really, but says to the Commodore's daughter, who he's kidnapped or exchanged deviously, you'd better start believing in ghost stories because you're in one. I think we'd better start acknowledging the fact that there is a cultural and ideological, if we don't want to go so far as say war, then I would say the competition is heating up. You know, we as Christians in this, culture war society are judged really on whether our words and actions, whether they match, a lot of the time. And if you want to learn more about that, go back to last week's video and have a look at what we explored there. And again, I apologise for the poor video quality last week. I'm not really sure what happened there, but hopefully that'll be better this week. Anyway, culture war, ideologies being promoted, etc. brings me to Disney. Now, probably like most people my age, not old, but I'm not as young as I once was, would remember Disney for all these animations, would remember things like Fantasia, where Mickey Mouse is conducting orchestras and chopping up broomsticks into hundreds of other little broomsticks and all of that. Good, wholesome, family-friendly, child-friendly entertainment. Yeah, that's what I liked about Disney. Children could just be children, and parents and grandparents, grown-ups could sit back and reminisce, of the magic that was Disney. Note I said was. So I bring to you a headline from March 30th, 2022. So all of a few days ago, a week ago, thereabouts. Headline reads like this: Disney executive cops to advancing gay agenda by adding queerness to shows. Quote from this article and the person that they were interviewing: in my little pocket of proud family Disney TVA, the showrunners were super welcoming to my not at all secret gay agenda. Maybe it was that way in the past, but I guess something must have happened. And then, like, all that momentum that I felt, that sense of I don't have to be afraid to have these two characters kiss in the background. I was just, wherever I could, adding queerness. No one would stop me, and no one was trying to stop me. So that's from an executive at Disney. The article carries on. The leak of Raveneau, I think you pronounce it, Raveneau's comments came as Carey Burke, the president of Disney's General Entertainment Content, vowed to drastically increase inclusivity in its productions, promising that at least 50% of its characters would be LGBTQ and the rest, or racial minorities, by the end of the year. Well then, so how do we feel about Disney now? See, before you answer that, let's just have a think about that word inclusivity, which again has taken on a whole other meaning. And let's think about that number of 50%. If you are representing minorities, whatever they are, racial or otherwise, if you're representing minorities, if you wanted to be equitable, at least somewhat accurate, would you not make the number of characters that were part of said minority equitable to the percentage of their representation in a cross-section of society? Wouldn't that be your goal? Because if you're going to have 50%, half of your characters representing minorities, is that not a contradiction? So, how do you feel about Disney? Well, still before you answer that, that statement that I quoted from, and again all sources will be linked below, so you can go and have a read of these for yourselves. That's something I'm trying to be very transparent there. You know, this is the article I've read, this is what I've drawn from it. You go and read it and make your own conclusions. This statement by Disney that I've just quoted from was actually in response to a bill introduced into law in Florida, of all places, by their governor, Ron DeSantis. And it received a little bit of media coverage here in Australia. It wasn't hugely widespread, but it did get a mention, you know, in more than one outlet on more than one day, and it was referred to as the so-called "Don't Say Gay" bill. Obviously, the social and cultural and political left lost their minds over that bill. Now, I've been critical in the past of the social, cultural, political left for their postmodern interpretation of language. And what do I mean by that? I've explored that a little bit in previous videos Don't ask me which ones, I can't remember. So you'll just have to go and watch them all to find out where I've mentioned them. I do also touch on a little bit of the postmodern ideology in the book. Again, a link for that's below. But this is not a sales pitch, this particular weekly word. When they throw a term like racism, that's not a good example. When they throw a term like homophobic, that's a better example. What is a phobia? A phobia is an irrational fear of something. Okay? Someone who is arachnophobic has an irrational fear of spiders. Some would argue that there should be no such thing as arachnophobia because it's perfectly rational to be afraid of spiders, but you get the point. Okay, phobia is an irrational fear of something. So by that textbook definition, someone who is, say, homophobic, transphobic, would have an irrational fear of someone who is trans person or a gay person. Now, we are in 2022, and I think long gone are the days when anybody could even claim to be scared or have a fear of someone who was, trans or gay. All right? But it's not used in that sense. And that's where their trickery, or the use of language, comes in. It is used as a label, a negative label that can just be thrown at someone in order to have them removed from a position, their views seen as untenable, their views seen as not acceptable, you name it. Okay? But I am losing my patience, and the benefit of the doubt I was prepared to give the social, cultural and political left. The benefit of the doubt is long gone. My view is very much that they are activists and that they are coming for our children. And I don't think that's a hyperbolic statement to make, and you'll understand why in a minute. Have a look at the Victorian education system and laws that have been introduced in the last few years, and tell me whether parents have any say in their children's future. I think you'll find it is limited at best, particularly regarding these sorts of incidences or feelings or desires or struggles. Victorians, you want to vote him out. You'd better vote him out in a landslide, otherwise you brought it upon yourselves. Sorry. The so-called Don't Say Gay bill was so called that by social, cultural, political left. They made it up. Not the bill is real, but they just called it something that has no bearing to what's in the bill, no bearing to the bill's intended purpose. So they just made up a name and ran with it. The so-called Don't Say Gay bill. What Don't Say Gay bill? What bill are you referring to? Quoting, this is a long quote. Again, the link will be below. It is the Parental Rights in Education bill. Now that seemed perfectly reasonable to me. Should parents have an active involvement in their children's education? I think most reasonable people would say yes. I don't mean teaching them, you don't want me teaching anybody maths. It's not going to end well. But involvement. Yeah. An email, your child is sick, your child saw a counsellor, your child is struggling with these things. Yes, parents should have an involvement in that. Excuse me. A bit of a dry mouth. It's the weather. So, the parental rights in education. Here we go. Long quote, looking over that way at my laptop. Requires district school boards to adopt procedures that comport with certain provisions of law for notifying students, parents of specified information. Okay? Requires such procedures to reinforce fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding upbringing and control of their children. Prohibits school district from adopting procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying parents about specified information or that encourage student to withhold from parent such information. Prohibits school district personnel from discouraging or prohibiting parental notification and involvement in critical decisions affecting students' mental, emotional, or physical well-being. Okay. What's wrong with that so far? They don't say what? Not in there. Prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels. Requires school districts to notify parents of healthcare services and authorises parent to bring action against school districts to obtain declaratory judgment, provides for additional award of injunctive relief damages, reasonable attorney fees and court costs to certain parents. So in other words, if the schools don't do that, parents have a right to take legal action. But back to the prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels. All right. Hands up who wants to guess what grades in particular, specifically, this bill is referring to. Everybody puts their hand up. And the correct answer is ding, prep, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. 5-year-olds to 8-year-olds. So, I'm going to add that little bit of information back in that little dot point there. Prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in prep, grade 1, grade 2, grade 3. Now, can I ask, why does the social, cultural, and political left have such a problem with that? What is it about discussing sexual orientation with a 5-year-old that this group of people is so passionate about? How do you feel about Disney now. I'll tell you how I feel about Disney now. I've cancelled my Disney subscription. It runs out in late April. We were paying it monthly. So I've got another, 2 weeks until it runs out. And then that's it. I have no plans to renew it. Now this is not coming from, some sort of self-righteous soapbox. You do what you want to do. If you have a Disney subscription and you wish to keep it, all power to you. I'm not telling you what or what not to do. But the beauty of a free market capitalist society is that I can decide who I want to pay and who I don't want to pay. And Disney, I'm just not that interested at the moment. That may change, but if it doesn't, I'm not going to contribute to that sort of ideology that wishes to sexualize 5-year-old children. Which brings me to Vladimir Putin. That old chestnut there. Because that's what I mentioned. I said Disney versus Vladimir Putin could get interesting. Now, leaving the Ukraine out of it for a minute. Just park that to the side. This is a headline from an article in Business Insider, of all places, from October 2021. The headline: Putin rails against cancel culture. Not today's topic. Putin rails against cancel culture and suggests teaching gender fluidity to kids is a crime against humanity. Well, there you go. A crime against humanity. I don't know whether I would have gone that far in my description of that. But hey, quote from the article: Putin on Thursday also said teaching children that a boy can become a girl and vice versa verges on a crime against humanity, while suggesting that supporters of transgender rights were calling for the cessation of basic things such as mother, father, family, or gender differences. Well then, so how do we feel about Vladimir Putin? I mean, sure, bring Ukraine back. You probably shouldn't just go and invade another sovereign country. But again, like I've said, whenever I looked at that a couple of weeks ago, I'm no expert. I'm not pretending to be an expert. I have no idea what's going on. I'm not an expert on Eastern European geopolitical conflicts and history. I don't know. But from an uneducated perspective, you probably shouldn't just invade another sovereign country. I don't think that's real good. But maybe not all of his ideas are quite so mad. So what do we do? What do we do? Well, I know what we do as a Christian, but I'm more interested in what we do as a society. Okay, like I said, I've cancelled my Disney subscription. You do what you want to do. But I'm very wary of shows and movies that my children watch. Very wary. Okay? They like YouTube gaming, streaming people. I'm very wary of what they talk about. I don't know what you call that. I call that responsible parenting. My children also go to an independent Christian school who hold the Bible as authoritative. Now, you may not be able to afford that. I get it. I get it. I really do. Some people can't. But ultimately, it is the parents who are responsible for building the moral and ethical framework for which our children then live by. It is our responsibility. We are the primary caregivers, not government. If the school doesn't provide information, request it. If they don't want to be forthcoming, go find another school maybe. If we're going to build culture, then we need to use words like mother, father, man, woman. We need to reinforce the family unit, mum, dad, children. And we need to not normalize that which is not normal. Now, before you accuse me of being any sort of phobic, by normal I mean behaviours, lifestyles that most people engage with. I would say it is normal to eat breakfast. I would say it's not normal to not eat breakfast. That is an objective observation. We need to stop normalising or allowing within our homes the normalisation of behaviours and lifestyles that are not normal. Because they are coming for our children. And on that uplifting note, until next week, God bless.